Hi everyone, welcome to the Angular Coder, and this is Gaurav, your host, and today we are going to talk about micro-frontends part 2. By part 2 I mean we are going to talk about monorepos. I'll make it much more easier than my last video to create a micro-frontend architecture and applications. I'll also talk about micro frontends and how they can communicate between themselves and how to transfer data between them. Also, I'll talk a little bit about deployments and how we can configure things when we are deploying these kind of micro frontends. So these are all the questions which I got basically when I created the video for micro frontend, and that's what we are going to talk about. Now, without wasting more time, let's begin with our video. As you guys know, I have joined Google recently, and one thing which surprised me, or I should not say surprised, I already knew it, but seeing in front of me was little bit difficult to get accustomed with. So the whole Google code base is a kind of monorepo. Monorepos are really important. Monorepos helps each member of the organization to go ahead and explore the code if they want. Git is not that powerful for maintaining a monorepo, but still it is a lot of feature has been added which makes it very easier to maintain it. But there are a lot of tools which help us to create and maintain that big size monorepo. At least for a small organization, Git should suffice. So having monorepo helps with finding, searching the code, reusing libraries, and many other things. And one of the tools which is really powerful for maintaining monorepos, which is present outside and is available for use, is NX. This tool called NX is really powerful, and that's what we are going to use today to create our micro frontend application. Let's start without wasting any more time into our code. For first thing, we have to create a kind of monorepo, right? So for that, we can directly use NX. You can install NX globally. You can find it in website. I'll put a link directly below it. What I will do is I will simply paste the command, and will say it as ngmfe macro frontend, Angular macro frontend. And as you can see, we are creating an NX workspace with npx command. So let's just create that. So we want to proceed, yes. And for now, we will not install any kind of dependencies. We'll simply create a blank workspace. Remember to create a blank workspace. We are not going to use an xCloud, but if you use an xCloud and you have a small organization, you have to register for it. If you use an xCloud, it is free for a small team size, and it makes your builds much more faster than what you will have if you have multiple team members in your team. So it caches the builds and makes it much faster. Our installation is done, and next thing what we are going to do is install our Angular package in that. Let's first simply open this in code. Let's open terminal, and let's start by installing our Angular package in this. Meanwhile, Angular package is getting installed. As you can see, there is a package.json, and it is little bit different from what you will have generally in Angular applications. You would have something called as apps, where we will create different micro frontend applications. You will have libraries where you can share a kind of shared libraries between those, which you can use between those applications. So as you can see, this makes it lot easier. Also, you will have a single node modules folder for all of your apps installed. Don't worry about it. Whatever dependencies you are writing in this package.json, as you can see, Angular has been installed, and some of the Angular tools for NX has been installed. Right now we have not yet created Angular application. That will create in just a second. To create a micro frontend application, we have to clearly say to NX that we are going to create an Angular application, and that is going to be a micro frontend application. So for that, there is this command, right, where we are simply saying that we are going to create an Angular application npx nxg. That means npx is, if you are not installed NX globally, you can use npx. I have installed NX globally, so I'll simply use NX. NXG means generate an Angular component which is of type host. Host means cell application. Generally, in your complete front-end project, micro front-end project, there will be one cell application, and there will be smaller components which you are going to load in cell application. So in this case, we are simply saying that our dashboard named application is our host, that means our cell application, and just press enter to create it. And we are obviously going to use SCSS for our application. So as you can see, package.json instantly got changed, and we have lot of Angular components in this now. And if you go to applications, you can see that two more applications has been created. One is for E2E and one is for dashboard. If you go to dashboard, if you remember angular.json, that has been replaced with something called as project.json, and NX uses this project.json to do Angular things. So you can just think this as a angular.json project. Also, you will see if you go to your Angular JSON file in your normal Angular application, this will be something dev-kit Angular, but now what we are using a custom webpack build executor. So if you have seen my micro-frontend video, in that we have talked about why this is important and how this is used to create micro-frontends. Now NX has done all these things already for us. Obviously you would have seen webpack config.js. This webpack config basically is similar to what we had done in micro-frontend application. Only thing is we have separated out configuration from actual config, so we can make it configurable as per our need. So here we are not saying anything, we're saying that our application name is dashboard, and our remotes, we have not yet created any remotes. Now what we'll do is we'll try to run this application and see if nothing has gone wrong. So we'll simply say, so this will simply start our dashboard application in development mode, and that's what we'll see. So as you can see, our application is up and running. Now let's do few more things. Before we go to micro front end, first let's also understand what is lazy loaded components. We are going to just check it if lazy loaded components work correctly or not. We can also use nx command. Our ng command didn't work, so we are simply using an nx generate angular, and then we'll say module, create an angular module. So we'll simply name the module lazy. So as you can see, our module has been corrected, and we'll see our node running successfully. Let's check our application, and let's simply see if our lazy component works. So as you can see, our lazy component is working fine. So here you will see that we are loading our module lazily in our lazy module. So that brings us to a closure of initial changes. Now let's go to our second thing, our main target today. So micro frontend. We had created our cell application, and now we are going to create our child applications. So here we have it. We have our command in our console where we are saying that npx nx, if you have nx installed, you can directly write nx, generate an Angular application which is of type remote. So you remember what did we type our cell application for? We typed host for cell application, and then we typed remote for the components which we are going to load separately in our front end application. And then we are simply saying the name of our application. Also we are mentioning that what is going to be our host. So dashboard is going to be host for this remote application. Let's just press enter, and we'll choose our styling, and voila, our application has been created. So if you see at highest level now, a login application has been created, and a dashboard application was already there. So let's just go ahead and see inside our login application what configuration is present in our module federation. So it is saying that our entry module, remote entry module has been exposed. So whatever you write inside this remote entry component or whatever module, that will be dynamically exposed, and then our host application can dynamically import those and show in their own application. Next thing we should see is what happened to our host application. Since we wrote host dash host dashboard, that place remote was registered. Now NX internally would manage the addresses which it is going to use, where that it is hosted during development, and if you say what is to be done during production, your we already have webpack prod config, where basically it is clearly written in comments that you have to write a separate application name and then maybe an example, the place where you have hosted it. So in that way it will easily you can access that. I don't think that you have to write slash remote entry in that place. You just write the URL and I think it should work. Now let's just go ahead with our coding. Before we write any more any changes in login and dashboard, let's just do one more thing which was really important, and that is about a shared service. That was one of the most asked question in last video. So let's just go ahead and create that. Again, NX provides an easy way to do that. You have a declaration of Angular library, and that library we are putting inside a share folder which will be present inside our libs folder, and the name of our library is data access user. As soon as that our library is created, did you notice something? Since we have one node module, so whenever we create new applications or something, it doesn't need to re-import everything again and again. So we have our library ready with us. Let's go ahead and create one service here. Easy as that, it is now created, our user service, and we'll just add a small utility code which will save username and password and will show the username password to a different application. As you can see in this application, we have user login, and we are exposing that subject via a behavior subject. You are using behavior subject because it will store the last value. Whenever someone subscribes to it, we will get the latest updated value. First, we are sending false by default. That means user is not logged in, and if user has provided correct username and password, which is demo in our case, as you can see, we'll set the behavior subject's value to true. After we set it to true, what will happen is whenever any new component subscribes to it, it will automatically get true. And when we click on something called as logout, we will reset our behavior subject to false. So anyone subscribing to it will receive false, and anyone who has already subscribed to it will also receive false. Now one more thing is this: if you have developed any kind of Angular library, you know that you have to expose that service or anything which you have created from your shared place. So we'll simply say lib and user service. So we are going to expose whatever we have created at this place. Now since we have created our shared service, we are going to go ahead and create our login application. So we have our remote entry component, and it's very simple. Let's just replace this code with something which will simply resolve, which will simply show a login username and password and some kind of styling over it. For that, since we are getting this error saying that ng model is not non-property of input, we have to import forms module in our code, and that should resolve the ng module. Just ignore this error. I have seen this error happening. We'll see if this is resolved in future, but this code will work correct and completely fine. You don't need to worry about this. So let's simply save this application, simply save our entry module. Since we had our app module configured in such a way for our remote application that it will load remote entry component, we can run individual micro-frontend applications separately from our main hosted cell and kind of develop on it. To run this application, we'll simply say nx run and the application name with serve. Now remember, if you don't have nx globally installed, you might have to write npx run, npx nx run. Please note that our application is hosted on a different port, so we'll just take our URL and open up in our application here. So as you can see, our application is working fine. You can keep on developing on this, but this is very simple. We have username, password, and then login. One thing to note is in input component, what we did is loaded up our shared service in this. So this user service was shared, as you remember. So it is from shared library. We have put it in our application, we have written in our constructor, and then simply we have used it to login. So when you press login button this code will actually set our logged in value to true. To just check it, what you can do is in constructor we'll just write one more thing. So once our code has been built, we'll refresh and simply receive a response that user logged in false. And if I type demo and demo, so we get user logged in equals to true. So that's how we are now logging in. We are now communicating with a service which is shared. But this is from one point. I mean, yeah, we have loaded our service in our remote application, but what about our host, and how does host is host and remote going to communicate with each other? Is the service instance going to be singular? Let's go ahead and see. For that, let's go to dashboard, application, and then our app component. I'll just replace this code with something already written and we'll go out about it. As you can see, we are going to import same user service and we have same kind of registration again done. So we'll simply say observable of type boolean, and we have our constructor where we have router, and then we have our login information here. So if user is not logged in, we'll go to login page. If user is logged in, we'll go to our home page, right? And if you see in our application, we have a simple ng template present inside this, where if user is logged in, then you will see this information, else you will see ng template information, which actually loads up router outlet, and router outlet internally would load up our lazy loaded module. Now where is that lazy loaded module declared? Here. We have already written that for path login. So when you wrote command to add login as your remote application, that time NX in its own power added a path also in our app component, where it is saying that if login path is received, you are going to load login module. Now if you see carefully here, there isn't any difference from lazy loaded module and login module, but internally, since it is using micro-frontend and it has abstracted that information from us but made it easier, internally it is going to load from a remote location our loaded login module and then load in our application. You have seen that we were able to load our remote module separately and our dashboard module separately. But in NX, there is an easy way to run all of your remote modules in one go. So if you write NX serve and our main host application, and then we can even say that dev remotes, and there we can provide comma separated different applications which we have created as a remote application. Once you do that and run it, it will actually compile both remote application and our cell application and then simply make it work. So as you can see, I have also moved my HTML code to a separate HTML and CSS file, and we have our component here. And as you see, we have run our core application until the value has not been changed. It will log in, and as you can see, our remote application is now loaded up in our main application. So if you see, our router outlet had loaded our login entry, which has login application, and if I type demo here and I press login, now you can see that you are authenticated, so you are able to see this content. That means our logic actually touched multiple parts. So if you see from app component, we were loading entry component here, and in entry component we actually called our service, and this user service, which is a shared thing, had called this method, and this method internally we had subscribed to it, and that's why we reached to our home page. Let's just retry to do same thing. So we have here our application, we try demo. So first of all, our entry component code has been triggered. If we move ahead from there, then we can see our service has been called, which is checking username as demo and demo. And then after that, our app component subscription has been called, which is going to say that now the person has logged in, and that's why you can say that you are now authenticated to see this content. So that's how we build our application using front end. And this complete logic has been, I would not lie, I have simply used a simple tutorial which is present there, and I'll share the link to that tutorial. And I hope you did understand and you did find out that how we are going to deploy it to production. If you have not, I'll just repeat it one last time, that you are going to use webpack prod config, where you will write login in our case, and wherever you have deployed it, if you're deployed in AWS or any different place app point for Google Firebase, whatever, for Azure, wherever you have deployed, you have to give that website's name with port ID or something like that if that port is present, and that's how you're going to load your remote applications. So yeah, I hope you learned a lot in this video and found it how easy it becomes when you're trying to use NX for your front end application. So this was introduction to monorepos and front end part 2. This is Gaurav signing off. Thank you for watching this video.